G'day, legends. G'day, superstars. Peps and Jdog here for a massive round 17 review of AFL action. Now, just a small piece of advice, ladies and gentlemen. If you're ever going to start your own podcast or you're ever going to start your own video show, don't start cracking jokes 10 seconds before you're about to go live. Otherwise, you're going to have a pause like we did. A certain individual without hair decided to just crack some funnies before we started and has thrown me off big time. But, hey, what a weekend of footy. I must admit something to you, Jdog. Last week I said it'd be a very boring round, I think. I think it was the round that has set up the season, and it has also locked in the final 8.
Again, you're going with this again.
I think the final 8 is locked in. We're going to get into that very, very shortly. More importantly, first time joining us, welcome. Long time joining us, like, subscribe, ring the bell. Once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We do this every Monday night. If you want to donate some stars in the chat, you can also do that as well too. It helps us support this beautiful podcast that's been going on for 7 years now. 7 years that Jamie's had to look at this face and listen to this voice. The dulcet tones of Peps and Jdog. Lace out. Good weekend, mate. How'd you enjoy it?
Not a bad weekend at all. It started off crackingly well.
Ooh.
I must say I've become somewhat of more a believer. But most of all, Peps, have you told everyone about our new revenue stream? That's
No, what's our new revenue stream?
Yeah, so if everyone signs up to us for $1,000 a month, you go on the draw to win footy, and it's a monthly rollover. So just $1,000 every month, and that's how we make our money. Like LMCT plus that, that.
Yes.
That's how we make money.
First month, you get 1 entry. Second month, 2, 4. Yep, exactly right. To win a brand new pleather football. Only $1,000 a month.
It's only $1,000 a month.
It's personalised.
Of course, that's not happening. No, I was Peps. I've noticed that a lot of people are doing this whole sign up for a month and become a member of something, and then you go into a raffle. And I thought, Peps, we need to do that. But the problem is, this show goes out to about 4 people that listen every week. So thank you for those 4 listeners that do it for us. But you asked the question about my weekend, and Peps, it could not have started any better with the loss of Collingwood.
How good was it?
Oh, it's sensational.
I'm a believer.
Are you a believer? You're now a believer.
I'm a believer. We'll get into that in a moment because I want to get through this later really quickly, and then I want to focus on that because we normally focus on the key topics of every single week. We've normally focused on little bits and pieces here and there, but there's so many things to go through. This round of football that we just had has set up the rest of the season really well for some teams and really, really bad for others. Rocky Mads is online, loves Peps. Essendon is coming. I said last week that just hold your horses because normally after the bye, you're not too flash. But I tell you what, after what I saw last week and what I'm probably going to see this week, I'm definitely behind the Bombers. I don't know where they're going to finish, but they've changed their complete profile defensively. And that's the one thing that you really needed to do. I still have some doubts, though, on your forward line. I do have some questions, but outside of that, your midfield's humming and your back line is sublime right now. All right, let's have a look at this ladder because there were some big wins and losses over the weekend. Rightio, let's get on top. Right. Sydney, another loss. Now, if everything goes to plan, Buzz will be online tonight because St Kilda won, and they didn't just win. They beat the top team. So there's still 2 games in front, still 3 games if you count percentage as well too. Carlton had a loss up there in GWS, which I didn't think that would happen. I thought Carlton would be too strong for GWS, but geez, they played really, really well. Fremantle now in the 3rd and Essendon in the 3rd, clear by 2 points. Just behind them, Geelong and Port Adelaide. Jdog, your team absolutely blew the Doggies completely out of the water. I didn't pick that. I thought the Dogs would just roll over you after what you've just been serving up the last couple of weeks. And for the Cats, it was at home, and I think they've got a really, really good run at home. They're a massive chance to finish top 4, which a couple of weeks ago you would have said that wasn't going to happen. Brisbane, 5th win in a row, gets them into the 8, gets them into 7th. GWS had the win that they needed to have. Collingwood had the loss that everybody wanted them to have. Melbourne had the win that, once again, that was the best first quarter of football I've seen them play all season. Gets them to 36 points and out just on percentage. The Western Bulldogs and Gold Coast and Hawthorn all having losses, which I think is probably marked, I could probably say, outside of maybe the Bulldogs. The rest are out of contention. St Kilda, great win over the Sydney Swans at home. No one would have picked that. And if any St Kilda supporter says that they saw that coming, they're Daryl Kerrigan. They are dreaming. Adelaide Crows, what can we say about them? Putrid. West Coast, putrid. North Melbourne, out we come. They come to play. They're off the bottom of the ladder, and they are showing signs of life. Will they climb any higher? Let's wait and see what happens. And Richmond, excuse me, they're in rebuild mode. They have to fall off the ladder. They have to trade out their picks. They need to get some more youth back in. They've had their years of success. It's time for them to start. But Buzzer's in. I told you it wouldn't take too long, Jdog. Buzz Boy's in. And yeah, it's time for them to rebuild. But North Melbourne, great win. So I said just before we went into the ladder, Jdog, I honestly think after last week's round of football, I think the top 8's locked in.
Interesting. We've got 7 rounds to go.
Yep. Here's my reasons why.
Okay.
All right. I'm not going to worry about the top 8. Forget about them. Collingwood, too many injuries. My check's going out for the rest of the year with a pec injury. So their forward line, which has already been decimated, has gone down even further again. All right. No one's scared of Collingwood anymore. They're just beatable. They run one way. They don't run defensively. And that's been shown many times. And they've just got too many kids playing that just don't have the experience. And that's not, unfortunately, going to take them across the threshold into the 8. Melbourne, Gorn's out for up to 3 weeks after the weekend. They play Essendon this week. He is our most important player. Without him, we need to win 4 out of the last 7. I can't see us winning more than 3. That means we're going to miss out. The Western Bulldogs, they've got their injury crisis going on right now. They've got just injuries left, right, and center, and I don't think they're going to be able to recover. And Gold Coast, unless they play the last 7 games at home, they're not going to get near it. And Hawthorn, Mitch Lewis has gone and done an ACL on the weekend. They need a forward. They're not going to be able to do it as well too. So none of those teams are going to make it. So that means that the top 8 is set.
You are going, I mean, like, it's on form for you to go this early.
It is on form, but last week we said, I don't know what's going to happen. But with the results that occurred, the injuries that occurred, and the form of some teams, it's going to make it massively difficult for anybody outside the 8 to make it. Especially, like I said, 9, 10, and 11, they've got injuries. Collingwood aren't scary like they were. Melbourne have got their injuries that we've seen. No Petrarca, no Gorn for 3 weeks. It's going to make it hard for them to get across the line. And the Western Bulldogs, they've got their injuries. Norton out for a few weeks, etc. So it's going to be, it's going to be a challenge for those teams to make it. The only other way I can see one of those sliding in is if someone out of Port, I don't think it's going to be Brisbane, and GWS have a complete brain fart in the last 7 rounds and totally cock it up. That's the only way I can see it happening. You got to take it 1 week at a time, as Buzz says. But I just think they've set themselves up really nicely. I think there might be, though, a shuffle for that top 4. I think 2 of those teams are locked in. I'm not too sure. I reckon maybe Geelong might swap with Essendon, just for the amount of games they're going to play at home. Feelings. Go for it.
The one word that comes to mind for me, Peps, is the word trust.
Yep.
And I don't know if I can trust GWS, Port Adelaide, and Geelong to continue what they do. Yes, we know that Geelong has got a plethora of games in the back half of this year at Cattery. But I don't know if I can trust them. I don't know if I can. I think we saw from Port Adelaide the football that lures us all in and think they're a top 4 team. But the opposite can happen just as quick the next week. And we just go, who is this team?
Yep.
GWS I have the same concerns about. Those 3 teams are the teams that I have concerns about. And I think that it is just as likely as those teams to go on a slide like we've seen them come into before this weekend on a 4 or 5 week losing slide just the other way.
Two teams that aren't sliding at all. Essendon, what a great win over the Pies on Friday night. Like, you got to think they were 5 goals down at one stage. And to come back and do what they did, they didn't just beat Collingwood, they smashed them. Now, I want to show you how funny this was. We were on the WhatsApps. Someone said I need to start praying. And they said, well, don't pray to God because that's not working. Who else are you going to pray to? There was the Thor, the thunder god. There was Allah. There was every god under the sun was being prayed to. And then next minute I've turned the phone back on and they've brought it back. To see the way they were playing, it was magnificent. Zach Merritt, he should be the All-Australian captain.
He's got something.
He's got something. You say that, every team's got their most important player. Who's Porth's most important player in your eyes right now?
Probably Butters or a Horn Francis.
Yep. Mine would be probably Gawn. I'd even go as far as probably Trent Rivers at the moment, just the way that he's playing some cracking ball. If Zach Merritt goes down, I think you can't replace him. He's like a Gawny. He's irreplaceable. It's like Curnow, irreplaceable.
I think I questioned this at the start of this year, or maybe even last year, saying where is Merritt gone? What's on with his football? He sort of just seemed to plateau, but this year, just another level.
No, he's at a level. He's like, he would have got another 3 votes on the weekend, right? He is climbing. If he's only about seven votes off, you think about mate winning the Brownlow, right? Based on where numbers are and simulations, etc. at this particular moment in time. Heaney's not there anymore because he's been suspended, which is another question for another day. But outside of all of that, he's just playing great footy. He's back, like he's been pretty good all season, but his back end of the season has been sensational, Jamie. And he said, Essendon, get on my back. And he's making Caldwell better, Durham better. It's Parrish isn't there, Shield isn't there. So it's given these guys an opportunity just to flourish. And they are blooming just in front of our eyes. And it is great to see. I was loving what I was seeing.
Also helps the fact that Stringer has now become once again a dangerous option in the forward line. I think probably like more than half of the AFL viewing public here in Australia got to quarter time and thought, we might call this an early night tonight.
I did. I said it's all over. I've got the message at quarter time. It's all over. I'm gonna go watch something else.
Yep. Because you're right. Collingwood are all over them. Dacos is ripping them apart. They just had continuity. I think they were going in at almost something
Chris
crazy.
3 and 5 was
crazy efficiency in the forward 50 in the first quarter. Then after that, you got to half time and it was 4 points down. And you're like, what's
going on?
Yeah, no, it was a pretty incredible game. And Peps, I know that this was the game for you that you're a full believer. I'm still not a full believer, but I am very, very, very close to becoming a full believer of the Bombers.
I'm not a full believer in the fact that they could win it.
Oh, no.
But if they keep doing what they're doing right now and other teams start to falter, why can't they take it? Why not us?
Got to win a final first.
Got to make a final. Exactly right. But they'll make finals this year, which I don't think many people saw happening, especially after their fallovers over the last number of days. So, it was just great. It was just a great game of footy, a great round of footy. It was awesome. A couple other ones I want to pick out from the weekend. GWS versus Carlton. I didn't see that one happening because GWS have been putrid. Their 5-0 start at the start of the season to then do what they've been doing through that middle. I think they've only had 2 wins out of their last 8 games. That's how bad they've been. But they were back to the GWS of old, and it was Cornelio, Whitfield, Callum Ward, like good old concrete head. Talk about Zach Merritt jumping on his back. Callum Ward's an absolute gun. And then my love child, Jay Hogan, down forward. Like, talk about just a complete rollover in terms of form from the last couple of years to next. Woo! Absolutely love it, Jdog. Just absolutely love it.
I have a question, Peps.
Yeah.
As someone who has come close to what's your record at? Almost 500 games.
377, but probably 400 if you add another club in. But I'll just go 377. That's what I like.
377 game superstar of the East Coast Football Club.
Yep.
Peps, what is it about? This is the thing I've always been interested about. What is it about clubs that seem to get to the 35 to 50 point mark down that all of a sudden teams are flipping these type of results over and play the most beautiful brand of football that you've ever seen? Because it's not the first time that we've seen a 35-point turnaround in a game of football this year. Within 30 minutes, it's back to even Stevens and then kicking ahead. What is it about that?
I think it just gets to, honestly, overcoaching. I think these teams are so overcoached that they follow a game plan to the T. They don't allow any creativity. And then it's like, shit, we're 5 goals down. Let's just be free. Let's take those risks. So those center kicks that we haven't been taking all night, let's have a crack at those. Those risky kicks into the forward line, we'll do that. Instead of maybe leading to the pocket, let's lead to the hot spot where, all right, we might turn it over, but we might get more reward as well too. It's almost that let's just have a crack. What do we got to lose? We're 6 goals down. I'm also finding, though, other teams are tightening up as well. So teams are like, oh, they've got one. And instead of continuing to attack, they start to go into their defensive mechanism. So when you get a team that goes ultra defensive, you can then get the flip side. You get another team who starts getting ultra offensive. It can just flip. And then the mental games start to play. So you wonder why Collingwood have been able to get back week after week after week after week. It's because they've got that mindset that they can do it.
The Swannies?
But you get over them a couple of times, and then they start, oh, shit, we've lost a couple of these close ones. Maybe we start doubting ourselves a little bit more. The Swans, they've gone down, I think, by a total of, someone said it might be 8 points for the entire season. So it's been, they've had very, very close. But it's bad kicking is bad football. I don't know how many times I've had to say that over the years. Bad kicking is bad football, and the bad football side of things happen again. Sydney, don't go blaming Logan McDonald for missing after this, just before the siren. Worry about the extra, I think it might have been 10, 11 points that you kicked more than St Kilda, who were more accurate. Look at those side of things.
I just find that what we used to call a 20-point game, you'd go, oh, the game is in the balance potentially, is now that's been pushed out to about 30, 35 points, and you still say the game is in the balance at that point.
Well, because teams are now willing to play that offensive game. They're willing to take a risk when there is no risk.
Yeah.
It's like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Mm-hmm. Well, that's it. When they, take a risk when there's no risk. What have you got to lose? You're already losing. And then when it starts to come off, that's why I was at the West Coast game on the weekend. Melbourne kicked the first, kicks 7 goals in the first quarter. Got to halftime. West Coast kicked a couple, and we looked at each other. I was there with Big Trev, friend of ours. Said, this is Melbourne. Anything can happen. It didn't, but we know how teams can come back. It's happened so many times this year. It happened in the prelim last year with Carlton and Brisbane.
And that's what I'm getting at.
Grand final a couple of years ago with the D's and the Doggies. You can pick out games all throughout this year so far. What about North and Collingwood? 58 points, I think it was at one stage.
Yeah.
And they came back.
Well, it's just an interesting observation. This year, I was just thinking about it, just going, there's something in it, because in tennis, we see the same sort of thing. When you're deep down, and all of a sudden the player just goes, I'm 2 sets down. I might as well just have a crack at doing other things, and starts to hit a few of those, forehand cross court, deep in the court shots, and a couple of down the liners, and you're like, and they get back into it, and they start to get into games.
What have they got to lose? Absolutely nothing.
But I think I agree with what you say. On the flip side of that as well, is teams get 35 points ahead, and then they tighten up. What was working once before, free flowing, beautiful football, didn't miss a kick, playing at all costs. they start to chip it around and turn the ball over in dangerous areas, and the team gets another goal.
And it can also be, what's the message coming out from the coaching department at that particular moment? Are they telling them to, hey, put the handbrake on? I know that there was a message went up on I think it was the Carlton GWS game on the weekend, which looked like an Xbox controller with an emoji face. And I think it was like control the ball, like control the game, or get some control, something along those lines. Well, duh. We know that. But no. I will say something though, Jdog. If you want to talk about a great win, that North Melbourne win against GWS, I'm off the Suns. It took me 17 rounds to say I'm off them. I'm going to ask you about Dimmer's comments in a moment. But geez, North Melbourne, like, have they got a midfield that you can just, if LDU stays, they have got a midfield that is going to take them forward for the next 10 years. They've got a gun down there at Larky. Zeri is like, talk about the most underrated ruckman in the league. He'd go up, him and Briggs, I would say, are the two most underrated ruckmen at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
They were just sensational, Jamie. Like, they were moving the ball. They were crisp. They were hard at it. They made Gold Coast look second rate, which doesn't really take a lot because it was an away game.
Yeah.
But it's just really good to see. And all of those supporters that have sat through the shit that North have served up, especially in the first half of the season, you can sit back probably since the bye or the last 5 or so rounds and sit back and go, if that is a snapshot of our future, the future is really bright. Like, and the other question is, okay, are they going to finish second last or last? If Richmond pull another win, might happen. Do they trade that pick 3 for an established backline, pal? Do they go for someone bigger in the backline? Like, these are the questions that I'd still load up on the best available player.
Absolutely.
They need to get some big bodies down back. Could you just imagine, Big Mackay running down back with them right now?
Peps.
It would make
if North Melbourne trade one of their top 5 picks again, I think that Arden Street could potentially burn down.
Never. No. Hey, Charlie Christopher, he has gone a bit of Essendon going to win the flag. He's gone the early crow round 17. Wow. I think that's the first one I've heard so far. So, Charlie, like the cut of your jib, willing to put your agates on the chopping block and say, hey, if you do, congratulations. You got to win a final first. All right. So it'd be interesting. But Port had a great win. Geelong had a great win. GWS, another great win. Fremantle, there's a team at the moment. I know it was only Richmond. Could they be a bit? Oh, I don't know. I'm a believer.
Making me nervous. What are you going to say about it?
I don't know.
What was it about the win?
About Fremantle?
Not about the win. It was about the loss of. What's about the game that you observed, Peps?
About the Fremantle game?
Yeah. What was it about?
I only saw some highlights. I was out at the local footy. I was watching St Albans and Hillside that day. You would have got a photo from me and Fang.
Did you get a photo of you and Fang?
Yep. But it's just, you have a look at that game and you talk about just a forward line that is just firing. Tracy kicks another 5.
Oh, yes.
It's 9 marks. They've just dominated from head to toe. You've got Hayden Young kicks his 2. You've got Michael Walters kicks his 2. Frederick kicks his 2. Sikowski kicks his. Like, they've got such a spread of goal kickers. But I'm still a little bit, like a bit of PTSD. I saw them play in a final 2 years ago, and they didn't look like they were even going to get near it because they were going backwards at every opportunity. That back half football, they weren't being brave with it. And I'm thinking, when it gets to finals football, are they going to go back to that method? The whole risk and reward we were talking about 5 minutes ago. Are they going to go back to, let's park the offensive work and let's take it back a bit and dial it back, and let's stop them first, and then we'll worry about kicking something ourselves. And that's my concern with them.
So are you saying that the Dockers at the moment are a sheep in wolf's clothing?
No, but I'm like they had 9 goal kickers on the weekend.
Great result.
But it's just one of those things that I've got a little bit with that Essendon as well. A little bit with Essendon as well. Like I think if Stringer doesn't fire, can I believe that Wright and Langford will kick a match-winning score between them?
Okay. All right. So
There's
concerns
a
about
bit
a
of
miss and concerns about Tracy.
Yeah, I'm not
If
Tracy.
one of those two don't fire.
Yeah, I'd probably have a little bit of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a bit of that. It's probably even the same with the Swans.
Okay. Even with their midfield that kicks a lot.
They've kicked bags of goals this year, that midfield. If they don't kick a bag, can you rely on McLean, Amadi, Logan McDonald kicking you a winning score, kicking you to a finals victory?
This week will be interesting to see how they go without Heaney playing, to see what the Sydney midfield looks like without their key piece.
Yeah, with one of their key pieces out. Who's going to jump in? Who's going to take that? So it's really, where does it all sort of fit? Carlton, I believe, because if Mackay or Curnow don't kick them, they've had their smalls and mids that have been, Williams has been kicking his, Cripps has been kicking his, Walsh does step up. You've got Durden, you've got Owies, they've been hitting the scoreboards as well too.
So Dockers, for you, are
they're
you
a
saying
watch
that
at the moment. I just think that they're a watch.
top 4?
If they make top 4, I reckon they'll play the risk versus reward game.
In a positive way.
In a positive way.
Yep.
Because if they lose, doesn't really matter. It's a free hit. If they make only an elimination final, I don't know whether they'll be as fully risky as they would be. What we need to do is over the next few weeks, watch how they play against top 8 teams and see what happens in that particular mix. Hey, Donna J's jumped on. Interesting question. Can Richmond sack a coach in his first season? Well, yes, they can, Donna.
Like St Kilda? St Kilda have entered the chat.
Yeah. They can sack Uze. I will say this. I don't think it's Uze's fault with what's going on. He's got players that are retiring, players that are leaving, players that are old. You have to rebuild.
Board has swept themselves.
Yep.
At the board level. Yep.
Yep. They've got to make some. They're going to make some changes down there at Punt Road. Considering only 4 seasons ago, they won a flag. That's interesting. I wouldn't say Uze's shit. And that's what Donna's actually posted, that he's shit. I don't think he's shit. Like I've said before, you could have the best race car driver in the world. But if his car's crap, doesn't matter how good of a driver you are, you're not going to get the results. We've seen the other way where there's been an average coach who's won flags.
Can I ask a question based on what Donna said?
Mm.
What's the grace period that Uze has, do you think?
Well, I think he's got a 3-year contract.
What's the grace period, though, Peps?
3 years.
Oh, you're giving a coach 3 years.
You have to. They're bottom. Jamie.
So if they get one more win next year than this year, that is a positive step forward, or are you expecting 2 wins?
If they lose Baker, so they're potentially going to lose Baker, potentially going to lose Rioli, may lose the other Rioli and Dusty. Like, you're talking about 4 caliber pieces there. You just can't replace that. And they've got kids that have had knee recos this year as well too. So they're going to find some challenging ways. So they're just not in a good spot.
Look, I'm with you, Peps.
They don't have draft picks because Dimmer traded them all out.
I'm with you. I think 1 year would be too harsh. I am with you probably on the 3 years.
How many's Adam Simpson had?
Yeah, or Ken Hinkley or whatever, people like that.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. This year, I feel like I have not got any feel on what type of coach Uze is. I've got zero feel on it. And it's because the players haven't been there. Whoever's left on the list has been so inconsistent. Injuries, inconsistency, complete boardroom shuffles outs and moves on and whatever.
Yep.
I feel this year I feel this year it's almost been like a ghost. I haven't seen what Uze even is about as a coach. I haven't seen a game plan. I haven't seen a structure. I haven't seen anything because he just doesn't have literally anyone to work with.
He hasn't. He hasn't. Now, Richmond have used 41 players this year.
2 lists.
Yeah, 41 players. The nearest to that is West Coast on 38. I'll put in perspective for you. Sydney have used 28.
Yeah.
You can't get consistency when there is no consistency. When you've had 2 teams roll through there and a couple on the bench. It's hard.
That's a compelling number.
That's a big number. And if you have a look at the teams that are sitting outside of the 8, the interesting one when you look at the whole lot is there's been one team. Western Bulldogs. They're on 35, which is the AFL average. There's one team who's outside of the 8 that's only used 34 players this year. And in their last 5 weeks, 6 weeks, they've played great football because they've had that consistency of that team together. Who's that, Jdog?
Brisbane?
No. Brisbane, funny enough, have had 36. So they've had a lot. Remember, they've had 5 knee recos this year.
Yeah, that's right. The start of the year.
Yep.
Essendon?
Brown on goal.
Hawthorn.
So Hawthorn have had under the league average for the number of players played this year.
That's interesting because you think about Hawthorn have rapid change.
Yep. So if you think about it, the start of their season was putrid. And then the last 7 weeks have been awesome. Why? Because those players that have been playing together, they get to know each other. They get the feel of how each other plays. They all get used to the game plan playing together. They get that synergy with each other. Richmond, 41, no synergy. West Coast, 38, no synergy. St Kilda, 37 players. Not really the synergy that you would like. North Melbourne, 37. Adelaide, 37. Melbourne have played 36 players this year.
Mm.
So that's a lot of people going in and out of a team.
Fascinating numbers.
It's big numbers. And you don't think about that with players coming in, getting injured. It happens. So it's not just your game plan, it's the health of your list. Sydney on 28, Carlton 33, Essendon 33, Geelong 33, GWS 33, Fremantle 34. So you get more consistency with your list, the better off you're going to be. Yep. I do have something to ask, Jamie.
Sure.
When's it time to call it quits?
Ooh.
When is it time for you as a coach or a player? I'd probably say from a player's perspective. Well, no, actually from a coach's perspective. When is it time for a coach to go, you know what? We're not playing you anymore. We have to, we can't put you in because the team's playing better without you in it.
I'm feeling slightly triggered right now.
Okay.
Peps, when is that time? I think the time is for the betterment of the club.
Okay. Here's 3 examples so far that I've seen this year. Sorry, 1 last year and 2 this year.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Buddy Franklin was the source of virtually every inside 50 for the Swans for so many years, right?
Correct.
You look at him last year, wasn't the greatest season. All right. You look at this year, He's not there. It opens it up for McDonald. It opens it up for McLean. It opens it up for Armady, McDonald, these guys. And it gives the forward line a new dynamic. Instead of going to him, we've got 3-4 options we could potentially go to. That's the first one. The second one, Tom Hawkins. 350 games he's played. Absolute warrior. Has a rig that virtually anybody listening to this right now or watching us right now would dream for, even the ladies out there. He's not in the team anymore due to injury. How dynamic did Geelong look on the weekend against Hawthorn? Gary Rowan gets in there, more speed. Stengel gets a little bit more creativity up there. Close gets his opportunity in front of goals as well too. Holmes gets his chance as well. They're just a lot more versatile in there as well. Excuse me.
Okay.
The third one, it's not the best example, but I'll throw it. Melbourne on the weekend, no Harrison Petty. Now, he shouldn't be playing full stop. He's been putrid. Didn't have a preseason, but he's been putrid. He doesn't play on the weekend. Melksham goes in there. So instead of having a big guy you're kicking it to, so that means we just bomb it on his head, we now have to look for shorter options, which means the forward line have to move around a little bit. It gives Van Rooyen an opportunity to get his hands on the ball. It gives Cozzy a chance. Tholstrup to get their hands on the ball. Chandler can get their hands on the ball a little bit more. So they're not one-person centric. When is it time for a coach to walk up to these players and go, look, I want to play you, but we're so much more dynamic without you. We have to put you on ice.
Yeah, I'll give you a fourth one. Radigalia for Port Adelaide.
Yep.
Hasn't worked. Just hasn't worked.
Has it worked?
No, it hasn't worked. Okay, so I've got for Geelong, still too early to call it yet in terms of that's been a success or not.
Yep.
You guys, a bit too early with Petty yet because you played West Coast. Interesting though, Peps, because he played higher up the ground.
Yep.
He played a lot higher up the ground this week, and it really unlocked your halfback line to your forward line connection. It really unlocked it. It
was like some of their run and gun was really nice to see. Like I was a little bit excited by it.
Yeah.
It was only West Coast, but you got to play who you play against. We play Essendon this week. Interesting if we're going to be able to do that, or do we go to a defensive role? I don't know.
I agree with Buddy though. I agree with the Buddy statement. I think Sydney have looked a lot better. I think midfielders are no longer looking for, when the midfielders are now 45 meters out, they're not afraid to have a kick for a goal.
Here's another one. St Kilda. No Ben King on the weekend. How much more dynamic did their forward line? Snags Higgins gets his hands on the ball again. He dominates what he has to do.
It may sound derogatory. I'm really sorry about this. He's probably a lovely fellow, but is Ben King relevant in the St Kilda forward line anymore?
No, he's not.
I don't even see them kicking for them anymore, though.
He's not, and I think that there's a couple of things, and I'd love to hear the St Kilda supporters' view on this. I think his confidence is completely shot, and I think that the way they dour ball movement and the way that they play, I wouldn't want those guys kicking the ball to me in a forward line. But Snags kicks 3, Sharman kicks 2, Rowan Marshall kicks 2, Mason Wood, Darcy Wilson, Philippou, Membry, Henry, Butler. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 goal kickers again, Jamie. They've got more of a spread because they're not kicking to the central guy. And when you're not kicking to the central guy, it also means the back line go, well, if they're not going to be kicking it to me, I'm going to double team Jdog. I have to now be accountable for where do I go? Who do we look after? Who's the man? So it can shift up that dynamic from a defensive side of things for the other team. It can throw their planning out a little bit as well. So I really like it. So I think it'll work for some teams, but there's others. I'm like, Buzz, you're dour. I've watched your team live. You are dour. I can't believe St Kilda have a win, and they're like, are you serious? Yes, St Kilda have been dour this year. If they haven't been, they'd be playing finals, but they're not. They've
Peps,
gone backwards this year.
It's okay, Peps. Don't start yelling at people on our podcast. It's okay.
Why not? We have to yell at someone. It's all in good taste. We all do it in fun, but I'm not listening to the media. I just seem from what I see. He's right.
Any other games?
He's got a great point. Every team is dour. True. Some teams are just more dour than others. And you've got Sergeant Dower running the mill down there.
Peps, talk to me about the Lions Adelaide game. That was also a cracker that we thought was going to be a bit of a shitty affair.
Well, who did it say more about? Who did that say more about?
Do you know what I'm sick of, Peps? I'm sick of the term honourable loss. Because I am certain that the Adelaide supporters will be pissed with seeing their team go down by another sub 15-point loss, and some of the supporters of that club going, yeah, but we pushed them. We pushed them. I think it speaks a lot more about Adelaide inability to close the game.
All right. Can we go through it?
Yeah.
Adelaide, 6 goal kickers. You're not going to win a game with 6 goal kickers. And when you've got people like Brodie Smith, Josh Richelli, tell me he's just been a real letdown in the last, well, definitely this season. This season he's been awful.
Well, there's one there you could talk about, Tex Walker.
Oh, he had 2, but he's not the Tex Walker.
Is it time to move him on?
Well, that would be a perfect example of, do we move Tex on and get him out to open it up for Himmelberg and Fogarty? I don't know. And who's that other big tall one that they brought in? Thilstrup. Like, you have to move on. And it's hard, but you have to move these things on, unfortunately. And he might be an example of one team. You're not going to win with 6 goals. And Ben Keys kicked 4 of those, and I think he kicked 3 out of the first 4 goals.
Yeah.
For them as well.
Any chance anyone just playing on Lockie Neal? Just want to stand next to him at all? Like, any chance? Just racks up 36. Whatevs. No, don't put a person on him.
And Brisbane have 9 goal kickers. You know what I mean? And when you got, the thing is though, 6 of those goal kickers kick singles.
Yeah, and Brisbane had another dirty day in front of the goals.
Yeah, but how much did they win by?
11 points.
11 points. That's what I mean. It's not about bags. You've got to get those ones from your mids. You need to get probably 5 goals out of your mids every game at a minimum. And the good teams do that. If I go to Geelong and check their stats, they would have done that. If I would have checked Essendon, they probably would have done that as well too. The teams that are not getting the wins, and that's not an honourable loss. Like Adelaide, we thought would have been contenders to play finals this year. You can stuff your honourable losses. You can park that crap. There's no honourable loss because you're a team that should be playing finals. If that was, the honourable loss was the other week. North. They lost to Collingwood, but they stuffed that one up. Well,
let's look at last week. Adelaide Crows would have been going into this game thinking we're an okay chance. We beat GWS the week before.
Yep.
The Lions just got over Melbourne.
Yep.
You've been thinking, we're a red hot chance here, but then I don't know, just once again falling apart a little bit. Like they never.
It should not be mediocre. Can I just change tack a little bit because it sort of feeds into this? Dimmer Harwick and his press conference. I know that's been bashed to death on the airwaves this weekend. I loved it because and you know what? I don't care if it was staged. I don't care if it was premeditated. It doesn't faze me. He's just done it. Because I agree with him wholeheartedly. That club has been drinking its own bathwater for far too long, and now he's coming in to try and make a change, and he's doing everything in his possible capabilities to do so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think all the players, probably not, but something isn't right where we're going all right, Jamie. Well, you're not, because you can only win at your home ground.
No, they're rubbish. But Peps, do you think it was behind closed doors? You can have those conversations. We're shit. We're terrible. We're pathetic. You boys are weak. All those sorts of things, right? Do you think it was a little bit of a thing for the fans? As a supporter, do you think you'd be feeling happy hearing Dimmer say that? And was it put on for the fans?
If it wasn't, if it was put on for the fans, great. If it wasn't put on for the fans and he actually felt that way, great. Because you know what? When you've got a coach whose press conferences, all you hear about are, we'll learn from it and we'll work on it and we'll learn from it and we'll work from it. And you hear that week in, week out, like to the point you could turn it into a drinking game.
100%.
I would love to see some passion out of a coach to go, you know what? We were absolutely putrid today. I'm not going to stand for this anymore. I want to see that.
Well, he's kind of dialed up the he's dialed up Longmuir's reaction after the loss that Freo had. He's dialed that to 11.
Yeah. Good.
Longmuir said, as a club, we don't stand for this. We're not that football club. We're not this. We're not that. Dimmer's just taken to 11 and say it was piss poor. That is basically bullshit.
If you're not going to stand for anything, Jamie, you'll fall for everything.
I have a question though, Peps.
Yes.
Coaches are ultimately managers, right?
Yeah.
That's what they ultimately are. Yeah. As a manager, if you're behind a manager in our corporate environment, if they come out and said like that to a board meeting, as an employee, how would you feel?
Depends on the person. No.
All I'm saying is there's also professionalism as well.
There is professionalism, but professionalism is like most things. It's only good when you think it's good, because every moment of every day, for every moment, there's professionalism. There's that much unprofessional crap going on behind the scenes anyway. So if somebody, I was at a meeting once at Foxtel, and the head of the Foxtel area,
we might just scrub that name out.
It's all right, doesn't matter. This is going back many years ago. He did the
subscription-based TV service you worked at.
Yes, a subscription-based TV service that still has a good hand in football. They, in front of everybody, dropped an F-bomb at the start of this meeting or whatever. And some people were like, oh, you can't say that. And others were like, hey, that's cool. Perception, like, it's how you perceive it.
I get it. I'm looking at it from the other side as well. That's all. I personally, passion in language and making players accountable is something that my club is bereft of at the moment. And I would love to hear it as a supporter to go, you know what? Absolutely. Full blown. Have at it. We were terrible.
Yep. Do you know who wasn't terrible?
Who's that?
A certain individual for your club.
Yes.
18 possessions in the first quarter, Jamie. Like,
yeah,
that's special.
Yeah, it is special.
That is special. That was just amazing. That was one of the best first quarters I have heard about.
18 is pretty sensational. The problem is he hasn't got his hands on the ball for the past 6 weeks.
It's okay.
Neither has the midfield for Port Adelaide.
You're only as good as your last first quarter. And he had 18 of them, which was pretty good too. So, look, like I said earlier, I think the final 8 is locked in. I know you've got your doubts.
I've serious doubts.
Now, like I said, the doubts are going to come down to whether teams are going to be good enough to keep their spots. And I think it's only the last 3 teams, teams 6, 7, and 8, I think it'll be. But will teams be able to climb in? That's what I'm thinking. So, yes, you might lose a game, but then I think the teams outside are also going to lose, so it's going to be a stalemate. That's where I can sort of see things happening. So, Port will make finals this year. I know you sort of That sounds sacrilegious. That you don't want to make finals because you want to see the back of Kenny.
Hmm.
But you're probably going to make finals. Is it a bit of a false economy? Sure. But there are usually every year there's 2 or 3 teams that are a false economy in the final late anyway.
How?
Just a couple of one more thing before we wrap up. How good has it been to not talk about umpiring this weekend? We haven't spoken about umpiring and how seriously bad it was on the weekend again.
We didn't actually.
We didn't, but I'm leaving it. I'm leaving it because I think it's one of those things that I don't want to get into it. But I did say I probably saw the worst dangerous tackle ever in the GWS game. No, it was in the Essendon game, I think it was. Can't remember who it was, but let's just say it was a tackle. It was a tackle where he didn't even drag him to the ground and the umpire's gone dangerous tackle. If you can see the footage, I know someone will know who it was, but I think it was in the Friday night game. And it was literally a tackle, and he didn't even throw him to the ground. He's gone dangerous tackle. The guy's head didn't even make contact with the ground. It was that bad. And yeah, there was one other one I remember, but there was one other one I saw, but I can't remember what it was. There was one guy who tried to punch the ball towards his forward line on the weekend, and he got pinged for deliberate out of bounds.
Unfortunate. A couple of people got knocked. A couple of people got rubbed out for the Brownlows.
Yes.
Take a couple more off.
Isaac, gone, Heaney.
Gone. I think, did Butters end up getting a week?
He didn't even get cited.
Oh, but one Port Adelaide forward did. I've completely
Georgiades, I think.
Georgiades, thank you.
Yep.
Got a week. Anyone else? Anyone else lost another week this week? No.
Just Rankin got 4.
Oh, Rankin for the
Yep, that was. Yep. So the whole red card. So is that a perfect example where there should be a red card, Jamie? It's blatant. It's off the ball. The guy's not going to be able to come back on because he's out. Should you be able to red card him?
I don't mind your card system. I'm more into your card system than your stacks on the mill team foul.
Since they've changed that, the team holding the ball, now they're paying that a lot quicker, but there are still some that I just go, I don't know how that's happening. I'll park that one. But I do believe that something has to happen when there's something so blatant like that.
What about the sin bin, like in ice hockey?
Yeah, but that's only for 2 minutes.
Come off.
But the guy's not. The guy's not going to come back on. He's concussed. He cannot come back on. So why do they still get a player for the remainder of the game for a cheap shot? They're the ones. But I don't think the umpire on the ground makes it. Maybe it goes to the arc and they determine whether it was or not. I think there's some merit to it. But the AFL will probably change goal kicking techniques or something else because Laura Kane and Andrew Dillon like doing that. Hey, 1 week at a time. Let's have a look at this week's games. Can you believe we're round 18? There's only 7 games of footy left.
Longest season ever.
Would you say it's the longest season ever?
Oh, look, I'm not going to lie. I really struggle through those 3 or 4 weeks where it's just like 4 games over the weekend.
That's got to change. That's just shit.
I really struggle.
That's no good.
Also, what are we talking about here? We're talking 24 games this
24 seasons, 24 rounds. Now, that 0 round that they chuck in at the start, plus gather round that they've chucked in, that's
got locked away for next year. Peps, you and I need to talk about this off camera.
We should do like a lace out footy tour for. Imagine that. We all go in a minibus, drive 8 hours in a minibus. Anybody want to come along? Let's do it. Hey, cracking games this weekend. I'm Chubbs Farquharing over a few of these games. Collingwood, Geelong. Like we're talking about, I don't think Collingwood will even get near Geelong. And they'll probably win it just because it's just one of those games. But that's going to be an awesome Friday night extravaganza to watch. I'm fascinated to see the Hawks versus Fremantle because it's down in UTAS. And Hawks have a great record down there. And apparently, it's going to have a low of -1 and a maximum of 10 degrees. I honestly think Hawthorn will win that. With no Mitch Lewis, they will win that. It'll be too cold for Fremantle. They'll get frostbite. Could you imagine if North knocked off Sydney up there at the SCG? I don't think it can happen.
Well, it's not the worst game for Haney to sit out this week.
Western Bulldogs versus Carlton at Marvel.
That would be a good one.
That'll be pretty good, but I think the Doggies have got just too many injuries at the moment. Norton's not going to be playing this week. Waitman's still out. I think Sam Darcy also got concussed, so he's not going to be playing. So they're going to be down a few. Not Sam Darcy. O'Donnell's going to be out, so there's going to be some challenges there. You want to talk about honourable losses? Adelaide versus St Kilda. Adelaide should win that one. They should win that.
What if it's really a look, if Saints win, well done. They don't move a spot on the ladder, and if Adelaide win, they just jump above St Kilda.
Melbourne versus Essendon. No Max Gawn. Can they do anything against a red-hot Essendon right now?
That's the game I'm probably second in line for favourites of this week.
I reckon this one is going to be a corker as well. Port Adelaide versus the Suns, just to see what your mob do. Just to see what you do, your mob does up there, and what a Gold Coast going to do, bounce back, and everyone's going to go, oh, yeah, well, we picked that. Richmond versus GWS, and West Coast versus Brisbane, because West Coast were pretty good at home recently, and then they've gone back into their old habits again too. So I think Brisbane will win that as well. So there is an opportunity, like I said, there is an opportunity there for those teams in 9, 10, and 11 to potentially climb. But if they don't win and start winning soon, that gap is going to be 1 game, 2 games, and they're really going to have to start relying on those teams in 6, 7, and 8 to start losing the dropout. It's fascinating round. Not every game, but it's going to be fascinating. Can the Hawks still do what they've been doing? Can North continue their good form? Can St Kilda get that win on the road? Can Melbourne without Gawn? Can Port Adelaide make it 2 in a row?
Yeah.
So much to unpack, and that's why we love this game.
Like it.
You like it? You know what I like? I like you because you are absolute superstar, and everybody who's listening to us live on the chat, live on Facebook, live on YouTube, thank you very much for tuning in to the round 17 review of a massive week of AFL football. If you haven't, like, subscribe, ring the bell, tell your mum and dad, tell your aunties, uncles, your mistress, your sugar daddy to get on Lace Out, because you know what? It is the best AFL podcast going around. None of that hoity-toity crap stuff with all stats. No fluff. Just great stuff. I like that. Jdog, anything you want to finish up before we wrap up?
No, Peps. Thank you for tonight, and thank you, listeners, for listening.
Beautiful.
And viewers for viewing.
Fantastic. Jdog, last but not least, my friend, how do you want your footy?
I like a lace out.
And I did a poll a few weeks ago about what merch do they want, and the overwhelming response was stubby holders.
Always good.
Always good. So if you would like to buy a lace out stubby holder, let us know in the chat or the comments. We might have something for you. Take care, listeners. Hope your team wins. Except
See
if you're
listeners. Love you.
Bye. So, Jamie, our listeners are the best. Just love them. So gorgeous.
They
Just
are
like
very nice
you.
people.
They are beautiful.